Hello and welcome back to Lessons in Attachment. I'm Carly Ann. I am the very proud founder of the Attachment Recovery Gym. That is your online membership for those of you that relate to having an anxious attachment, and you're probably in that learning and taking action phase of your healing. Basically, you are ready for change and you are determined to become secure and so much more. I'm teaching inside the Attachment Recovery Gym from over a decade of professional experience and 3 decades of personal experience. What I want for you from this podcast is to be able to take away some gems, some ideas that can also help you to move from anxious towards secure attachment. Today on Lessons in Attachment, we are joined by an expert. I absolutely love having guests come on and chat to you. I just think it's really refreshing. It's great for me to hear from other people, to learn, to grow. And I think it's refreshing for you guys as well to meet new faces, hear new voices, and sometimes get similar messages or brand new messages that can just make you go like, ah, yes, I knew that, or I needed to hear that. And I think that we get that a lot from these guest episodes. Today, we are talking about heartbreak. Holly is a breakup coach, otherwise going by Breakups and Love on Instagram, and she's specializing in emotion regulation and self-soothing techniques, including EFT tapping, self-care, and practical strategies to overcome heartbreak and start enjoying life so that you can feel fulfilled again. She supported people through their breakup since 2019. This conversation honestly lights up my soul. For those of you that are going through it at the moment, maybe you're at that rock bottom, maybe you've been cracked wide open in a place of having no closure or being confused. Maybe you're starting to see that light again. But wherever you are, I really, really hope that this conversation can help you. I talked to Holly about some of the common themes that you see when it comes to a breakup. What are the kind of mind traps, the unhelpful thoughts that we have? What happens when we thought we had a certain future and now that's taken from us? What happens when we haven't had closure? Or your ex has moved on quickly. You keep thinking about them moving on. Holly really dives into that with us. There's conversations here about if this isn't making sense to you right now. Should I block them? What should I do? What shouldn't I do? How do I come back home to myself? And as well, we end the conversation really talking about some great practical tips to help you. You will hear that we discuss that Holly's going to come into the membership, talk to us about journaling and do some EFT tapping with us. So do check out the Attachment Recovery Gym if you want to come in and explore that, be part of that conversation and that workshop. Hey, Holly, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I'm really excited. I'm trying to think. I've definitely had in the membership, I've definitely had someone come in and talk to us about breakups, healing our heart again, and things like that. I may have had someone on the podcast, but it hasn't been for a long time, if that's the case. So I'm really excited to have you here and come and talk about this, which I know for me, a breakup was for sure one of the things that literally triggered my whole healing journey, like really that literally woke me up, I would say.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
yeah.
Do you
I
want do you want to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Holly, and I'm Breakups and Love. You might know me as Breakups and Love on social media, and I help people get through their breakup. So I'm an EFT practitioner, and I first trained in that in 2015. And my approach is very much it's a mixture of coaching and EFT, and it's very much around the emotional regulation as well as practical being proactive finding a strategy, finding things that work for you. So I do that. I have a full-time job as well. I work in domestic abuse. I work in training and business. And I run this on the side and help people. And I've trained as a yoga teacher in 16, 17, and my background is in public health. So I've always worked in a kind of service-based helping people role, firstly around nutrition and then community projects and then yoga. I did until last October run self-care sessions, which was a mixture of the yoga, EFT, journaling, and kind of like self-care techniques to help people, not around the breakups. But I just find that the techniques are extremely helpful to anybody, but obviously, especially when you're going through a breakup. So, yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation and talk about it more.
That's so interesting as well because and I shared this yesterday. I was saying to you that I have a membership and I'm looking for a couple of people to come in and speak about specific topics at the moment. And
Mm.
one of them is journaling. So after this, I'll have
Yeah,
to pick your brain and see if maybe you're up for that.
I would absolutely love to. Journaling is,
No.
I mean, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but it is absolutely one of the number one things that I recommend people do.
Oh my
Uh,
God, that is crazy. Honestly, I genuinely said yesterday I'm looking for someone for money mindset and journaling.
wow.
Yay. Okay. That's another conversation, but I'm
Yeah.
excited for that. Any members that are listening, you'll know that
Yeah.
that's coming up. Why breakups then? How did that happen?
So very similar to what you said before, that I've had, it was an experience, well, multiple experiences that I've had. Actually, the first kind of experience that was quite significant for me was a breakup 12 years ago. And I didn't know how to navigate it, didn't know how to handle it, just didn't really know what to do. My self-esteem and my self-confidence were really impacted. The relationship in itself was a really good, happy relationship that I look back on with fondness. But it was the ending of the relationship that I took really badly, probably in hindsight more so than what I realized at the time. Um, and onwards from there, having kind of a low value on myself, and just obviously we don't get taught these things in school. My onward journey from there was quite turbulent because of how I felt about myself, and it just never really kind of got better. And then when I was in my last relationship, I started to really reflect on that and learn about it and learn about what had happened after. Um, and then that relationship ended, and I'd started to kind of look at relationships and breakups and how they impact people and start working with people. And then it was a real test of, okay, I need to put into practice everything. And it was that breakup that was a catalyst for me for really understanding it on so much more of a deeper level and putting into practice all the things I've been learning and doing and working with clients on. Um, but obviously embodying that myself. And it wasn't just the breakup, it was a catalyst for me changing a lot after that breakup. It was like everything came crashing down. It letting go of that relationship, letting go of experiences I'd had before that relationship that were really traumatic. Um, and everything kind of changed from there. And I'm saying, I know it's only 2 years ago, but my life looks nothing the same apart from my job as it did 2 years ago. And the way I feel is the best I've felt since probably my early 20s. Um, so why breakups is because I've had both experiences of, firstly, not knowing anything about how to handle it, and I'm not blaming myself. We don't get taught this, and reflecting back and realizing what that kind of how that affected my onward trajectory of my life, to now realizing, okay, there is so much that a person can do to help themselves. There really is, to get through it in a proactive and a successful way,
Mhm.
to then have better experiences, which is what has happened for me. Um, and I know after speaking to thousands of people over the last few years, how many people struggle with it. And it's been a quite eye-opening experience doing this work and realizing it is hard for a lot of people, and it's so important to check in at that point and be like, "Okay, what do I need to do?" Um, just to build yourself back up, so and everyone handles it completely uniquely, but to me, it's just had such an impact on my life to have such different experiences, that I'm so passionate about helping other people to not feel so alone and feel reassured and realize that there is so much power in taking things into your own hands and really caring for yourself. So I'm just really passionate about it, really passionate about helping people to look after themselves, which has always been a passion anyway, in any, in my whole career. But this to me is just, I love speaking about it. I love learning about it. I love helping people with it.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Like,
hopefully
there
that
is,
was.
I completely believe that idea of life is so different 2 years from before, because there's nothing like a breakup that really cracks you wide open
Yeah.
and just shines a light on patterns, shines a light on where you've been neglecting yourself, shines a light on just so many things all at once. And it just so happens, because I remember with my breakup being in this, eventually once I got through the absolute shattering part of like, I'm too scared to do this, and
Mm,
started to kind of see the light a little bit. I remember feeling like, okay, this pain, number one, for me, it just can't be for nothing. But the
mm,
other thing I really remember having this feeling of is knowing, and I know not everyone does, but I would say most people go through a big breakup in their lives.
mm,
And I was like, why would humans all have this shared experience that cracks us wide open, makes us hit rock bottom?
mm,
So many people have incredible stories that come from breakups. Like, how is it possible that most of us experience this? I was like, it must be something
mm.
that we're supposed to go through. It must be something that's supposed to help us in some way, even though it's really painful. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense, because you're right. It's a shared experience that happens to everyone, but you still can feel so alone in.
So alone.
Yeah, but you're right. It it's there's nothing like a heartbreak to be very revealing on a lot of other things in your whole life, and how you live your life. It's an identity crisis in many ways, where you're now not identifying yourself in this partnership or this relationship, and now that's gone, what's left? So
Right.
you may have forgotten who you were before. It might have been such a long time, or you might have lost yourself, or you've just, you've naturally been connected to someone else, and your life has revolved about around that relationship. So it's like, who even am I? So figuring all that out is like you say, it's that cracked wide open feeling.
And I mean, and it's so overwhelming, isn't it? Like, where do I start with all of everything that I can now see? Because
Yeah.
there is this moment, I feel like there's that fear, like, like just fear of like, and the loss and all of the things. Then
Mm,
there is this kind of moment of like, I guess just seeing the light a little bit. But obviously, I'm aware that I guess people that might be listening to this episode are going to be people that are in it, wanting that kind of
mm.
support. Um, and when you're in it, God, it's so hard to remember that, isn't it?
Yeah. So hard, so hard. And it's really important for me in the work I do to help people to tune into their needs, rather than be prescriptive, because in that moment you might be in total denial and just not want to hear anything from
Mhm.
anyone. This is not happening. So it's about, okay, well, what do you need in that moment? It's not about, well, it is happening though, so there's part of that as well, but there's more so, how can you care for yourself in this moment, no matter what stage you're at, no matter if you know you're in denial or you're starting to see the light and you're feeling a bit better. What do you need? Like, how can you tune into you, no matter what you're feeling? And and kind of have that patience and compassion with yourself no matter what, because it is such a really deeply distressing experience.
Yeah.
So it really, I really feel it needs a lot of digging deep for that self-love and that moment by moment self-care, basically.
Yeah, the most basic, right? The most
Yeah,
basic self-care.
yeah.
What would you say then is because sometimes I think, well, in general, we don't like to feel bad, right? We
Mhm.
don't like to feel like we're rock bottom or things aren't
Yeah.
good or our self-esteem is knocked. And it can like you were saying, with a breakup, it can feel really, really lonely, and it can feel like we are sometimes even feel like I'm a bad person, whatever it is. What
Mhm.
do you think is like a normal experience? If you did have to say like what's quite common across different breakups, maybe in terms of how people think or what
Mm.
they believe about themselves, the world, relationships, what do you see as being quite a yeah, common pattern for people?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I can definitely pick up and observe common themes and frames of mind and fears. Um, the the one that, well, there's a few, but I'll start with the one that I was just speaking about yesterday, so it's at the top of my mind, is a fear of the ex moving on quickly or being happy with somebody else quickly or wondering what they're doing, and does what they're doing now mean that I'm flawed? I wasn't good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm lonely and they're not. And it's like this seeing of yourself through the perspective of what your ex is doing, who they're with, how happy they are. Um, and I hear that and I see that and I get a lot I speak to a lot of people about it. Um, and again, it's like nobody can tell you, and it's also not helpful. Just don't think about it because it's natural and it's common, and trying not to think about something doesn't make it disappear. It is you still thinking about the thing but thinking about it in a different way. um so the way I kind of approach that is, you don't know, as much as you would love to know the inner workings of somebody else's mind and why they moved on quickly and what they're doing now and how happy they are, and this like kind of catastrophizing in this wild imagination of I'm sad and lonely and I'm never going to be happy, and you're seeing them in some kind of blissful romance and laughing and skipping off into the distance. um and it's like, you don't know that. There's a lot of social, another common thing which ties into it is the kind of inability to step back from social media in terms of maybe unfollowing or not looking or unfriending or whatever's needed to be done. That's common, and a lot of people say it feels so final though. So there's two things going on. It's then you're seeing what they're doing and you're getting these pictures in your head, but also if it's final, it's what I try to say is if it's final, it's already final without the social media. The social media is just delaying or prolonging the experience of you. Some people can stay friends and they still check each other's social media, and I'm not saying everything that I'm discussing now applies to every single person, because a lot of people are like, I'm not bothered, I'm happy that they're happy. That's fine. I'm talking to the kind of common
Yeah.
challenges. And I'm not a you must delete social media, you must go no contact. In my opinion, no contact definitely helped me. But how I approach it is, as I said before, what do you need? Is looking at their social media helping you? If the answer is no, how can you change this for yourself? Um, like kind of getting curious about why are you still doing it then? Not you must not do it, more ask yourself, be honest with yourself, is this helping you and is this going to contribute to your happiness? And the same with the worrying about somebody moving on too quickly. It's like you are you're seeing yourself through the perspective of them, but the point is to make your that what they're doing totally irrelevant to how happy you now get to be, and your kind of recovery from the breakup experience, and your own self, kind of your own journey has no what they're doing needs to have no impact on. Firstly, you don't really know what's going on for them and nothing's ever as it seems on social media. but also this is about you now. Bring it back to you. What do you need? Do you need to really be looking at the new person that they're with and analyzing and comparing? There's just so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of what is my ex doing? The social media thing comes up a lot. The fear of never meeting anybody else happens a lot.
Yes.
Which
That this was the last person on earth that would ever make me feel that way,
Mhm.
love me that way. We had the best sex. I'm never gonna have that with anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so true, isn't it?
Like totally, it's like even if, and I'm guilty of this, that this has happened to me, so I understand it. Even if you know deep down that person wasn't right for you and it wasn't a fulfilling relationship, it can still, you can still then after the split, and this is another common thing, they're on a pedestal straight away. They're the best person ever. It's all my fault. I should have done different. I've lost the best person ever. Yeah, you're right. No, I'm never going to have that chemistry. I'm never going to fancy anybody the same. Nothing, no one's going to measure up.
Mm.
And it's like the acts on a pedestal thing, it's just getting perspective, bring it back. But why did it end though? Try and just get clear on the reasons you are not together. Yes, they might be amazing, and I never advocate. I really disagree with hate your ex, strategies
Same.
to get
Yes.
there, like, get their attention and win them back. No,
Yeah.
like if they want to come back, that's up to them to approach you and do that. But this is about you now. Like, why did it end? What are the reasons? They might be an amazing person, but then take that as they've shown you what you do value in a relationship. Take that as you love that about them, which is great. And there is how many millions of other people in the world that also can make you laugh or also like to go on holidays, etc. It's your mind again, it's this catastrophizing and this vividness of the imagination of, but this again, it's totally normal, and it's not a judgment on this happening. It's just a process of
So it's
feeling.
like a lot of mind tricks.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's a few ways I look at it. One of the things I mentioned, I wrote a blog post last night about when your ex moved on quickly. Sometimes I think, and you said it before, we don't want to feel uncomfortable. Like we don't want to face the reality that we are now not with this person, that we are now having to rebuild another future. It's exhausting. We thought we had it mapped out, now we don't. So actually, the mind tricks, I believe, can be part of the avoidance of this is what I'm facing now. So it's actually feels more comfortable for me to think about them and what they're doing and think about how they amazing they are, because actually the thought of now, what do I have to actually do? And this feels like effort and it's uncomfortable is not where you want to be. So it's like a protective mechanism, that your mind is wandering to places, and it's a case of, okay, that's okay that you're feeling that. Don't force yourself not to think or feel however you feel, but what can you do for you instead in that moment? And what do you need right now? And how can you do something loving and kind for yourself, which will also build up your self-esteem, so that eventually you're just bringing it back, bringing it back. Those thoughts are not taken over. You're not consumed by them anymore. Um, so yeah, like I think that's quite a few of the common ones. The low self-esteem, the low confidence, the self-blame. Self-blame is a big one. Um,
About that, and I don't know if this falls into kind of the what's normal, um, but if you could just speak a little bit to that idea you were saying about, you might have had your life mapped out,
Mhm.
and now here you are, and things don't look how you expected, the image, the vision, the dream. And I think, there's a big question around, is it a lot of the time? Is it that we're really struggling to let go of?
Mm.
What do you see in that? Like that idea of everything I saw for my future has just shifted.
Yeah. What I think to that is a few things actually. I could speak on that a lot, but I'll try and keep it simple. So, and this ties into another common thing, is the potential we had though was so great. I'm not saying every future you thought you had mapped out was potential, but essentially it kind of is because you don't know yet because it's not happened, is the firstly, if the future you could have had or should have had, or if only things would have been different between you, you would have had that future that you hoped. That can play into it because a lot of the time, obviously, people miss the person, they miss the memories, they miss genuine like love and happy times together. But sometimes the future that you think you could have had would have been as a result of a lot being different in the relationship. So again, it's about getting that perspective of, are you missing the potential future or the reality of what those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many years or months were showing you what how it really was. um because you can be letting go of the idea of a future, but whether that was ever going to happen with this person is another question. So there's that again, it's
That's really interesting. Okay.
right.
So that future, that potential future that you were imagining, picturing, is that possible anyway with this person, the way that the relationship was, the way that the two of you worked together? Or was that just a dream as well?
Yeah, it's all really
That's
useful to
really
think
interesting.
about.
I don't think I've thought about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, the everything is very every single breakup and context and is unique and individual, and all of this is why I really value tuning into you and your situation and what you need and how you feel, because only you know. But if you can get perspective in these types of ways, then this is going to help you to get a bit clearer on and settle you down as well. So but it could be that you were like, well, we did have that though. We did go on, I don't know, say for example, but in our future, I saw us going on 4 holidays a year because we always did do that. So of course it would be the same. And that's not I don't want to invalidate anybody who wanted the same things they always had. But then it's like, but there's what is the reason then that that was stopped? What were the problems around the 4 holidays? That eventually would have maybe led to them not being as enjoyable anyway. Like, and that is a bit more of a general kind of rule because there is a reason for the split. There's always a reason, otherwise it wouldn't happen. So it's about just getting clear on, okay, that did happen and it could have still happened, but what are the reasons why it hasn't? What problems were there? What tensions were there? Where was the communication lacking? Um, where, what were the things that what were the things that caused the breakup, the relationship to not work? Because if those things were happening, then how could that have existed in the
Mm.
future? Because it hasn't. So it's like getting back into the reality all of the time,
All
the
the
reality
time,
of
isn't
the
it?
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back to the reality. What about that was just making me think about the no closure. Do we need closure to move on?
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah. That's a, I mean, I don't know why that wasn't at the top of my head because that is really,
Wasn't on my list.
yeah. I mean, I've got a lot to say about closure as well. I believe that you are the only person that can give yourself closure. I'm speaking more to if the other right now, and this is the most common kind of query I get, and
Mm,
what I help with is a person who didn't want the ending of the relationship, who feels blindsided or
yeah.
rejected. And obviously I'm not saying that people who don't end the relationship don't feel anything because they absolutely do. Um, it's more that it's that kind of category of person where they haven't ended it, so therefore they feel like they haven't got closure because either the person went cold or they didn't really explain it very well or it just doesn't make any sense. And it's like there's always that longing for more detail, more conversation, more kind of elaboration on why this person decided to do this thing. And it can take such a hold of you, as it can in the same way of thinking about what your ex is doing all the time. It's almost like your power is lost to this not having closure, or to, but my happiness depends on them. My happiness depends on whether they give me closure, or it depends on whether they're happy or not. And actually, I believe that if you didn't want the situation anyway, no matter what somebody says, it's still going to hurt. They can explain it to the nth degree. And this has happened to me as well, where in that moment or after that conversation, I'm like, okay, yeah, it makes a bit more sense now. And then after I'm like, but no, but I don't want it though. So it comes a point where you in my opinion, it's more helpful to decide, no, I get to be happy and I get to put this to rest and I get to let this go. And even if I'm not feeling it right now, this second, I'm going to do whatever it takes to give myself the closure and move on, because me waiting for something, a one sentence or one piece of information that makes it all make sense, you could be waiting for a very long time. So giving yourself closure means you decide that even if you don't understand, you still get to focus on you and be happy and rebuild your life. That's the way I like to look at closure in a very summarized version,
Yeah.
because it's something that a lot of people do struggle with.
It's making me think of a time for me, and there's plenty of times I haven't had closure, and not like on long-term relationships just, but like, even the shorter term ones, that come
Yeah.
to an end. And I remember what I would find useful was literally just saying to myself, like, maybe like this is the end. The end is that I don't know. The end is that it doesn't make sense. That is the end. So, like, and I remember being like, "Oh, the ending is this." I kept looking for something else to mean it was the end. I was
Yeah.
like, "No, this is how it ends. It ends with me not knowing."
Yeah. Yeah. And that I love that way. It's again, it might be just our kind of idea in our head that everything has to be cookie cutter and make sense and be fit into little boxes and be all neatly packaged before we can leave it be. But actually, if it was a bit messy and I don't really get it,
Yeah.
I, like you say, that's the end. That is it.
I have a client at the moment. I'm sure she won't mind me saying that she came to work with me after a breakup, and one of her key takeaways from one of the session was that we decided, um, let's not keep trying to make sense of what doesn't make sense.
Mm,
It doesn't make sense. Like, and really, like the behavior, it didn't make sense. It was
yeah.
all over the place. It was back and forth and up and down. So let's
Yeah.
not make sense of that.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's might even be a good thing that you don't understand that, because that means you don't relate and that means you don't do those types of things.
Yeah.
And you've obviously take from that you value consistency and reliability and not odd behavior.
Yeah.
Whatever that odd behavior is, now get to decide that I know for me that I don't want that. If someone's acting like that and I don't get it, that doesn't make me feel good. So in the future, I can take a lesson from that and I can say, well, if someone's acting strange, I'll explore it. But what that is almost a piece of wisdom for you in future to show you what is and isn't a good fit.
That's it.
Like messy behavior that doesn't make sense. I don't like it and I don't get it and I'm not engaging in it.
Love that. Yes. So, what do you recommend then? So, someone that's listening, they're going through that breakup, whatever kind of phase they are in at the moment. What are
Yeah.
the things that you recommend? It sounds like you're really, really strong on what do you need?
Mm.
What do you recommend in terms of things that we can actually do or commit
Like
ourselves to?
practical. Yeah. So I recommend journaling straight away. Journaling, and it doesn't even have to be pen to paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I buy a notepad from this Tesco and a biro. It's don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to use journal prompts unless that helps you. Write down what you're feeling every day. For me, it helps you to get things off your chest in your own safe space. And also it helps you to better understand yourself from the common themes that are coming up. So you can say, well, I've felt like this now for 6 weeks, actually. Do I need to get extra support? How do I feel today and what do I need are two questions that I recommend people journal on every single day. And it kind of, for me anyway, became a kind of a release and a way of regulating myself. If I can write it down on paper, it is a way for me to calm myself down because I'm riding through it. I'm not denying how I feel. I'm writing it right now. This is intense for me. I'm feeling angry because of this. I don't understand this. And actually, by the time I've written it, 10, 15 minutes, I feel, oh, okay, I can go about my day now. So that's one thing I advise people do, or voice noting it to yourself. Speak as if you're sending a friend a voice note and send it to yourself. I also advise to spend a lot of time with people who make you feel uplifted and love you and remind you of how amazing you are just by being around them, and making plans with people that don't mind you cancelling them at last minute, because that is something we can kind of withdraw when we're going through something hard. And actually that can be good in many ways, where you just need, I need a bit of space. But to keep in touch with people, keep putting yourself in the company of people who uplift you, even if at the time you're like, I don't really fancy that, but I should go. You know, it might make me feel better, then go. But if you organise a night out with someone and then you change your mind and you say, can we just watch a film? Organise things with people who get what you're going through and can accommodate for that. And then I movement, getting outside if you can in nature every day, going for a walk. Again, it doesn't have to be anything complex, but moving your body. Sometimes when you're going through something in your mind and you've been contained, say in your bed or in your room for a weekend or weeks because you're just so down and you're trying to process everything, even just the act of putting your clothes on, getting outside and being away from your space can help. And obviously moving your body is just helpful in many ways, and being around nature. um I learned something actually on one of my EFT kind of mentor groups, that, I mean, I knew this anyway, but I never kind of put the words to it. But when you are outside in nature, so when you're very like tense and you're in like fight or flight, and you're kind of in a stressful situation, your vision can really fixate. It can get very narrow and you can tense up because it's your body's way of looking for a threat. Whereas when you're outside, what happens is that when you're in a big landscape, such as, I don't know, you're next to a river or a field or on a beach, your peripheral vision comes into action, and your vision widens, which actually calms your nervous system down. So actually just the act of being outside is a calming effect on you without you even having to think about it as well.
Yeah.
Um, I obviously am a EFT practitioner, and that is something I help clients with, but it's also an amazing technique you can do yourself as DIY self-care day to day. If you can learn that, do that. It, obviously for deeper work, see a practitioner to help to keep you safe and supported throughout the session. But in terms of like helping you in that moment, so whatever stage you're at in your breakup, there's going to be different emotions. There's going to be sadness one day, anger the next,
Yeah.
self thoughts about what this means about me. It means that I'm a rubbish person, I don't deserve love, I'm never going to be happy. EFT can help you work through any of those. And again, it's not about denying you think it, it's about, this is how I feel, it's okay, and I accept how I feel, and I'm going to love myself and be kind to myself anyway. And obviously as you do that, EFT is tapping, so you're tapping on the acupressure points as you're doing it, which sends basically sends signals to the emotional centers in your brain and helps you to feel calm. But the actual speaking of the words of, even though I feel angry, even though I'm not coping well today, even though I heard that song on the radio and that's really got to me, no matter what it is, no matter what stage I'm at, it's bringing that full acceptance and compassion. So EFT literally, it does not matter whether you're one day after or you're 6 years down the line and you just found out they've got married and now it's just brought it doesn't matter, because it's about meeting you where you are. And also, I mean, there is absolutely loads more I recommend. Like, it's too much to even talk about, but I just really feel like kind of it's about dealing with the present first, because you have to function in your day to day and think about your basic needs, your routines, like, your stability, like the things that keep you grounded and safe. For me, for example, I'm absolutely heartbroken, but I need to go to work every day. I've got bills to pay. So it's like, what are my basic needs? How can I support myself at the basic level? And then how can I regulate myself? What tools help me? Is it journaling? Is it movement? What is it? Figure that out, have your own strategy based on the things I've said, or and more. And then when you're kind of like, okay, I'm functioning, I'm going to work, I'm feeding myself, I'm getting up, then you can bring in other practices such as, what has this taught me? How did I show up in that relationship? What was the reasons how can I look at it from this is the way it happened versus it was all my fault or all their fault? How can I just look at what went on and what just happened and take some wisdom from it in some way? And then in terms of looking at, so you've got the present and then the learning from the past. the reflections, again, you can do that in journaling. And then the creating kind of a new future for yourself, your new identity outside of this relationship. So, what do I want my life to look like now? Like, what do I enjoy? Who am I? How can I spend my days? Is there hobbies that I've neglected? Is there friends that I've neglected? What is the things I actually want to change in my life? Like we said, cracked wide open. Like, do I even like how I'm living? Was I happy in that situation? Do I want to move? There's so much to contend with, but if the way I like to piece it is the present is so important because that's where you are, and the regulation techniques and the strategies. The past for the learning and the growing and the wisdom. And again, getting help with that if you need it, because there's a lot of people have really painful experiences that are too hard to kind of look at and dissect. And obviously, and I myself went to therapy. I was having therapy at the time of my breakup, and that was really beneficial for me. And then the future is all about you being like, right, what is it I want, and how can I work that back and take those actions every day? If I do want to start a dance class, what can I do right now? Well, I can just send an email, inquire if there's any availability. And then next week, what I'll do is I'll go to the shop and I'll buy some new gym pants for it. Just baby steps. It doesn't have to be all of these things all at once, all overnight. It's a process, and you might not want to think about the past for 3 months. You might just not want to go there, or you might just be so like immersed in the past that you need to be there for a bit. And
Mm,
that's what I mean by knowing what you need. Like there's no there's no rule. That you asked before what's kind of common, and I get quite a lot of specific questions like, do you think I should do this? This just happened. Do you think I should do this? And it's like, I can't answer that for you. It's so much more to it. You need to think about the pros and cons of doing it, and is it helpful for you? Is this contributing to what's your intention behind it? Should I message them happy birthday? I don't know. Like, is it going to make you feel good? How did it go down last time? Have they asked you to respect them and leave them alone? It's not, there's no rules. It's like what is the situation for me and how does it look, and what is the best way, not just for me, but boundaries with my ex or whatever that I need to consider before I make this decision for myself. So when I said before of it's about being what you need, it's a complex kind of application of that concept to lots of different elements that are flying at you from every angle. So it's a lot to navigate.
yeah, but honestly, thank you so much. I feel like you've given some like incredible, incredible ideas, tips, like gems that people that hopefully that are in it can even
Mhm.
just find that kind of next level strength for themselves. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you. And it's so hard because I could talk to you for so much longer on so many of these topics. I'll definitely, definitely speak to you about coming inside the membership.
Love to.
Because it sounds like I feel like the journaling, the EFT, it sounds like there's lots of skills you have to share. Um, but I do have three questions for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
Um, so love,
Mhm.
what does it mean to you? And if it has, how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I love that question. So what it means to me now is if it's to me, it's an intentional thing where it means like, you know, I'm all for like being each other's safe space and biggest cheerleader and adventure and chemistry and fun and all of that, but also um what the way it differs for me. So that's how I see it now. Whereas maybe before it was a lot more emphasis on the chemistry without thinking about the aligned values and whether we actually match. And also this idea of love not being a thing that we get and then it makes everything else better is that's how I used to probably see it. Whereas now I see it as if you meet someone that you value, you've got the same values, you can support each other, you can be each other's safe space, best friend vibes, but then also have your freedom. To me, it's so important for me to feel like I belong, but
Mhm.
then I'm free to be me as well. And I would always want the other person to feel like that. Whereas before, maybe I didn't think about those things. I didn't think about it as, like I say, intentionally. I more saw it as there's chemistry and, like, that's enough to kind of continue with this.
Yeah. I can relate to that, and I know many people listening can as well.
Yeah.
What about God? I feel like you're such a good person to answer this question as well. Love can be amazing
Mm,
when it is painful and when it throws you off, and I guess the whole episode has been on this.
yeah.
But yeah, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, and that is an interesting question because it is obviously everything in terms of breakups, it's everything I've said. Um, but for me, I think that the only thing I'll add to that for me personally, which I've really learned over the last couple of years is take a step back and have a breather. So for example, if it's an argument with somebody or there's something going on, even an ending, it need give it a bit of space. I have had a tendency in the past to push and, "Oh, I need it sorted now. Everything needs to be okay now." And this probably links in. I do feel on reflection that I definitely had an anxious attachment style before, and I've had a bit of a journey with that. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because now I'm like, it's okay. I can have a breather, a bit of breathing space. Just take a minute. They need it too. If it's an argument, the more I push and push and want it sorting now, is that really helping? And it's actually having that confidence to say it's all right to just take a step back and not be the fixer and the "it has to be done now." So, as well as all the other strategies I've said, feeling however you feel, things happen. To me, it's important to remember my routines and my fundamental basics
Yeah.
always, and carry on, but not deny how I feel ever. But the breathing space is definitely one for me.
I can relate to that one as well. Definitely. I love that.
Yeah.
And you get to go back to any age and you can give yourself a lesson in love. You can't say you wouldn't change a thing or that there's no regrets. What
Mm.
lesson would you give yourself?
The lesson I'd give myself as in what I'd say as in what I'd tell myself from like years and years ago,
Mm.
I would say, don't rush. There is no rush. Like, just chill, like, just look at this from a bigger picture. Um, and really know and understand yourself before you rush. Because a rush never makes anything happen faster. um, and also to trust in myself. So, and the way I really do that, and you probably relate to this with the work you do, is the trusting in your body is speaking to you. So learning to tune into that quicker, and obviously like practicing yoga and things does help, but way beyond earlier on in life, even into my teens, if you know, listen to what your body's telling you there. If something doesn't feel right, what's it showing you? Get curious about it rather than ignoring it. So the lesson I would say is, yeah, don't rush and learn to trust yourself and your body and tune into what is going on for you in that moment rather than putting it to one side and carrying on anyway. That's
I love it. Thank you so much. Um,
okay. You're
you said
welcome.
this at the beginning, but where is the best place for people to find you?
So I am on Instagram. Well, Breakups and Love is my Instagram handle, but it's got two underscores at the end because the handle wasn't made. Or my website, where you can find me through it. You can find my Instagram through there anyways, breakupsandlove.com. So those are the two main places. But if you put Breakups and Love into Instagram, I'll probably come up without the underscores anyway.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. It's sad like to end it because there's so much more to talk about,
I
isn't there?
feel like we could just carry on. Honestly, I could talk about this for hours. I
I
really
know.
could.
Thank you so much.
That's okay, thank you.